I was born in a small family, below average, below middle class, almost 2,600 kilometers away from here, extreme south of our country, a small state called Kerala, which is blessed with the 44 rivers, which also created a lot of issues last year, which you know. And I was born in a very, very small village, which is 82 kilometers away from my district headquarters. So you can imagine the place. And my ancestral profession was connected to temples. So my grandfather was a priest there, and we all were connected to the temple doing the same kind of work. So I was also forced to get up in the morning around 4:30, 5 o'clock every day from 3 years onwards. Then most of the houses there, nearby there will be a river because of this 44 rivers. My house also located near a river. We have to go to the river, take a bath and go to temple. And then support the family profession, come back and then go to schools or whatever it is. So I didn't do my LKGs, UKGs or nurseries like what many of you must have done because there was no such systems. So I directly went into my first standard at the age of 5, not like 6 today. And after coming back from the basic work, we just walk. So my school was almost 1.5 kilometers away from my home. So we walk onwards and backwards. So almost 3 kilometers I was walking up and down. I'm talking at the age of 5. That too without having a chappal. In the sense it was not needed. When you go to temple, you cannot use a chappal. So you walk barefoot. And we never felt it was a necessity. So we just walked. I did the same up to my 4th standard. So every day 3 kilometers from the 5 year onwards up to 9 years, walking up and down. Then when I graduated from my 4th to 5th, I moved to a high school, which is 5.5 kilometers away from my home. So almost the walking has become 11 kilometers. But I had a luxury, certainly, because my father gave me a chapel. That was the extra luxury I got. Then, but still continued the walking. Probably those days walking made me very fit. Even now I can walk any number of kilometers without any tension, difficulty. At the age of 50 plus, no issue even now. And the other part what I want to share with all these youngsters here, I did all my schooling in a government school. So when I passed from first standard to second standard, it was like hall like this. One side is first standard, then second. So you just turn yourself, you will become second standard. Then you move little bit, you will become third standard. So I made my pass in the same hall from first to fourth standard, I still remember. And up to 12th standard, every subject, all scientific subjects, all studied in the local language called Malayalam. And I don't know if any one of you have come across with that language. You must be knowing it's a very tricky language. It's like put some stone in a box and make some sound. It feel like kada 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 aisa sound aata hai. That's the way that language sounds. And all the educations I did in that language up to 12th. Every words are so tough, but since it is mother tongue, since it is the local language, it was easy for me to study it, no problem. So after all this, to cut the long story short, what I want to tell you, after this schooling, when I got an admission for engineering in Pune, it was mechanical engineering, specialization in printing. There were two problems, I tell you. Problem number one, my father was very unhappy since I opted printing. Reason being, he was telling, this is a nonsense branch. What are you going to do? You are a lazy bug. That's why you don't want to study. That's why you are opting printing. I took printing because of my fascination. I had a passion for printing. I want to understand what printing is. And I know it, and I was sure I can make a career out of it. But my father was against me. He started almost shouting at me. He stopped almost talking to me later because my both brothers were opted computer science. And those days that was just started. And you know that computer science started masters first, then came degree. MSc people were going to computer science, and that was the time. I'm talking all the 30, 35 years ago. But I decided, let me see what can I do. I started putting all the efforts possible into my studies. But I was a bit unlucky because when I was in my first year, my father met with an accident and I lost him. So he is no more now. Last 35 years is not alive. But after doing this printing, I think this printing itself helped me to travel many countries. Maybe 53, 54 countries I could travel till today. And more than 77 universities I have visited till today. All because of printing. Probably you may think, what is this branch, what to do with that? So, first point what I want to tell you is, all those boys and girls who are sitting in front of me, irrespective of your branch what you have selected, there is nothing to do with a particular branch. It is all up to you how you are going to make it different. This is what is going to make you different. Today, my both brothers used to tell when we meet together, oh, we would have opted printing. Both were computer science, but still they say, oh, we would have opted printing. Because the reason being, now they think that there were not much people. When I graduated, post-graduated, did my PhD, I was the first doctorate holder in printing in India. You see the benefit, what I got, since I opted a very different path. So now they were telling we also would have opted. This is what is life. Because when you opt a particular branch of study, maybe commerce, economics, or management, or maybe all various branches of engineering, somebody will tell computer science is better, not mechanical engineering. Forget it. All these has no meaning. We need everyone. Only thing is you have to make a difference yourself. So you have to fall in love with your branch first. The problem with the new generation, I have seen, they will never fall in love with the subject. If you don't love what you do, you cannot progress in your life. So if at all, if you don't have that confidence of your choice, what you have taken today, at least from today onwards, please fall in love with your subject. I'm sure if you don't love something, you cannot get it back. All these are give and take policy. So at least start that from today. So this is my short experience. And second thing, my major issue was not all this. These are all okay. This is one part. But my major issue was my communication. Because English was a foreign language to me at the age of 18. It was just like Greek and Latin. I was not able to speak a single sentence in English because I did everything in my mother tongue. Whatever I think, whatever I speak, it comes the same Malayalam. And all the scientific words, this was the biggest issue for me. Like we learned gravitational force, you must have learned it in your schools itself. I learned it in a word called Bhugurutva Akarshana Balam. You can't even repeat it. It is in my mother tongue. That is the word what I learned. So, relearning, unlearn and relearn is a big process. It's not an easy thing. And especially all these language abilities, all will get into you in your childhood. What you are going to learn in your childhood and how you are going to develop it, that is going to help you in the future. So in my case, you just imagine, I was in a worse condition than many of you sitting here. One problem what I found with our children here, this part especially, some of them have that complex like my English is not good, I am not able to communicate. Forget about English. You think whether you can communicate well in Hindi first. Learn that. That is the first thing to be learned. If you can be good in one language, you can be very good in any number of languages. There is no issue. Today I can fluently speak 8 languages without any difficulty. There is no issue for me. So what I want to tell you, learning a language is not a big thing. But again, you have to put your effort. I do remember when I was in my final year engineering, like this, there was a campus recruitment, but that was from Times of India. They came for recruitment. And Professor Yashpal, our UGC chairman, later he became, he was writing in Economic Times those days. He came and gave 3 topics for discussions. And aaj bhi yaad hai. Topic number 1 was, one head, one vote policy deteriorated the quality of Indian democracy. Second topic was necessity of drafting agricultural graduates in India. The third was long-term planning is irrelevant in the dynamic growth of modern technology. And the group decided to ponder upon long-term planning is irrelevant. And they started speaking on LTP, long-term planning is irrelevant. But I want to say long-term planning is relevant. But my problem was language. I was not able to speak. Then out of the 8 people sitting round for the group discussion, I was only one from the government school whose communication skill is very poor. So I was looking around and seeing the people. They were cascading. The way they were communicating was amazing, and I was not able to do anything. What can I do? Then with great difficulty, end of the round, I wrote on a paper in red what I want to say, just one line. Then Professor Yashpal came to me and asked me, "Bete, kya ho gaya? What happened to you?" I started crying. Literally, I started weeping. Then he asked me what happened. I told, "Sir, I come from a family like this. I did all my schooling in a government school, and I don't know English. That's the main issue. Subject I know, because written test I stood first. But when it came to group discussion, I was not able to perform." I think he liked it. He patted me from the back and he told me, "I will take you for this job. But you have to take an oath today that you will put all your effort to improve your communication in English too." I agreed upon, I touched his feet, took his blessings, and from that day onwards, I started putting all the efforts possible to understand how to communicate well, how you do the modulations, how you use a right phrase, how you look at the audience, how you make the eye contact, where you put a pause, and see how to bring your content in a flow. All these lessons, slowly we learned. And I feel so happy. 15 years ago, when I was invited first time to a college in London, it's in Elephant and Castle, London College of Communication, where I had to deliver a lecture for the whites who were sitting in front of me. So I had no complex. I told them I come from India. I speak Indian English. My pronunciation may be different. I don't pronounce like you. But I can speak English without mistake. This is what I said. And that continued up to 1 hour 15 minutes. And continuously, I got invitation for the next 5 years. I went there and delivered lectures. So this is, I'm sharing with you not to market myself. I don't need to market it now, very clear. Because as a teacher, this is the highest designation what a teacher can think is a vice chancellor. So today I have become a vice chancellor and I am happy, very contented with my job profile, what I am doing today. I am sharing this to you because you are all 10 times better than each one of us. The background what you have is much better than all of us. So you can do wonders. The only problem is you need to put all your efforts, put all the exercise, be ready to do hard work. Today the problem is everything we look at a shortcut, because the whole life is a shortcut today. Because if you want to read something, you don't need to. You go to Google, filter it 3 times, 4 times, you will get the information what you want. So this will not work out in life. At some part of life, you have to put all your hard work. So I want to share with you the lesson number 1. If you are all coming from some village, coming from some normal school, nothing to worry. Be confident of it, because the people who have changed the world, they all were from villages. Starting from Abraham Lincoln to Thomas Alva Edison to Narendra Modi ji to Manohar Lal ji, our chief minister, they are all from some small villages. They are all not from the Doon school. Don't worry about it. You don't need to go to Shimla or Ooty to get into a big school. It's not needed. It's all up to you because you have the potential in you. You know both sides of the coin. So you know how you can handle it. So this is my first advice, what I want to tell you. Now, the second part, what I want to share with you. My dear friends, the technological concepts, if you look in and around the world today, are changing rapidly. So today, what we learn is either insufficient or obsolete tomorrow. It's very clear. Whatever I learned in my college days in printing, 80% or 90% are obsolete today. I cannot use it as it is. This is a reality. And in my case, I was lucky because I am from the previous generation. I could manage with what I learned, at least 15 to 20 years. But that is not possible with you people because the time span is very less. To understand this, one concept which I used to share with my students also, I like to share here also. Now we are going through the fourth industrial revolution. This is what everywhere people talking about. And luckily 2015 when Industry 4.0 concept came into existence, I was in Germany for a program. So I could see that. So the fourth industrial revolution started from Germany this time. But first started in UK, second and third in US, which you know that 300 years ago when the steam engines came, the first revolution came, then the electricity came, then the micro electronics and computer science, which made the third revolution, and the fourth one, which started in 2015, just 4 years ago, 15, 16, 17, 18. Just 4 years ago, the fourth revolution has started. So you are all the products of the fourth industrial revolution, Industry 4.0. This is what everyone talks about. So when this industrial revolution happens, how the system functioning is going to change, which you have to understand it very well. This is very, very important, my dear friends. So the changes happens basically with the three things, and there are so many subsets also. But the three things which are going to control the system are Internet of Things, cyber physical systems, and cloud computing. These three things will decide how the system functioning will be, how a factory should run, or how another production system should function, even how an administrative system should function. So this is very important. So when this changes happens, how you are going to be prepared? This is a big question in front of you. 4-5 years ago, when I was attending a program with IBM, they made a statement called the digital disruption has already happened. I do remember even today. I was not able to understand those days why this title is given, the digital disruption has happened. But then they asked some questions to us, which you also must have heard, but I am repeating only for you, which we could not believe a few years ago. Which is the largest taxi company in the world, which do not own any taxi? Uber. The largest bank which do not own any currency, Society One. The largest content provider in the world which do not create any content, Facebook. The largest accommodation provider do not have any infrastructure, Airbnb.com. The largest retailer do not have any inventory, again, Alibaba. I can give you hundreds of examples like this. So, which we were not able to think 10 years ago. If I want to start a taxi company, I will go to the Sonipat market and ask which car is the best that I can buy. But today that is not the question. A year ago, the CEO of Mercedes-Benz, Daimler Chrysler, he delivered a speech in the AGM where he told, I am not worried about Toyota, I am not worried about Ford, I am not worried about Volkswagen, I am worried about Google, I am worried about Tesla. Because bloody, who thought that somebody will come and keep a computer on top of 4 wheels? This is what he said. And he predicted all traditional car manufacturers will be out by 2030 because the purpose of the car is repurposed. This is a very important word, my dear friends. The purpose of the car is repurposed. So you need to know how to repurpose things. When you invent something, there will be a purpose, but after some time it will go, so you have to repurpose it. This is one aspect which you have to develop. Now, when these changes happens, only one question comes in front of us. This also all the industries, management experts talks about it. Even some of the speakers who have already come here, they will also share with you, I'm sure. They all will ask you to bring one quality into you, that is how to bring agility into you. Only one question they ask, that is, how can you bring agility into your system? So there is no single way. Agility is nothing but bringing adaptiveness. How fast you can change yourself, how fast you can adapt the systems. This is very, very important. So I was discussing this with one of my friends. He's also a scientist, a technology management guy. So he was also suggesting me there is no single way to do this. So there is only one way. What he suggests, and which I also believe, you don't need to accept it. He talks about it's a three-point approach. Three-point approach is you need to develop 3 abilities in you. The number one ability is you need to know how to iterate, iteration. And second point is innovation. And the third point is disruption. Third point is disruption. What is iteration? Iteration is doing things better day by day. You have to improve yourself on what you are doing. There are certain things which you have to keep with you till you die. You cannot change it. You have to improve your skills on that. The best example is, I used to quote the sushi expert from Japan. There is a hotel owned by a sushi expert. He prepares only sushi. It's a fish dish. If you want to get a seat in his restaurant, you have to book 3 months before. Otherwise, you can't get it. You can see the photograph. Obama is sitting in his restaurant. Then Putin is sitting in his restaurant. At the age of 86, when Fox TV took an interview with him, they asked, what are you doing now? He told, I am improving. I am improving my making of sushi. So at the age of 86, what he did for more than 60 years, he is improving. Because in his particular business, what he need to improve is his iteration, doing things better day by day. So this quality you have to improve in you. And second part after iteration is innovation. Innovation is nothing but more like a value addition. You cannot just sit as it is. You can't be complacent with many things. Every day you have to innovate. But when innovation comes, one thing is very important. Any innovation, if it cannot bring money back from the market, that innovation will not exist. So we have to analyze it in such a way that any concept, whether which has a high-tech life cycle. This is what I learned from a scientist, Dr. Chuck Hull, who started the first 3D printing company, 3D printing machine manufacturing company, 3D Systems Incorporated. He is based out of Charlotte in US. 2008, I went to his annual general meeting. I could act as a scientific journalist for him, and I saw his factory. It's very beautiful. The way, the kind of machines what he has developed is unbelievable. Customers are doctors, civil engineers, and many more. So when I discussed with him, I could realize one point. He told me 3D printing or cubic printing or this microstructuring was not my first passion. My first passions were so many other things. He had more than 7 to 8 different passions. But he told it is, I couldn't bring innovation into that. So I can't bring money back from the market. So if you put in a triangle in 3 points, invention, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Draw a triangle, put on 3 points, invention, innovation, entrepreneurship. There is a cyclical relationship. So if any invention or innovation cannot bring money back from the market, that has no high-tech life cycle. So you have to understand whatever you do, whether it has high-tech life cycle or not. So Dr. Chuck Hull found out his 9th passion, 8th or 9th passion, 3D printing or cubic printing. He felt there is a market and he started a company and he started making money. And that money he used to drive his passions, chase his passions. And remaining passions he is chasing with this money. So innovation is like this. You have to be innovative, and 100 people can give you thousands of ideas. All look very rosy. But when you try to make a business out of it, it will be a failure. So there is no meaning for such innovations. Always keep this in your mind. And the third and the most important thing is disruption. You have to disrupt yourself. If you don't disrupt yourself, your life will be a gift of somebody else. Take it from me. Because nobody in this world can say that I don't want to grow. Then Ambani should have sat at home. He can't do that. He has to work much more. The moment I say I don't want to grow, I am embracing slow death. I am underlining this sentence, my dear friend. The moment you say to all these young entrepreneurs also who are sitting in front of me, the moment you say I don't want to grow, you are embracing slow death. Somebody will replace you, or that's the end of it. So we can't do that. So you have to disrupt yourself. If you don't disrupt yourself, you will be replaced. The best example, just go back 100 years ago, GE and Kodak, neck-to-neck companies competing. Today, where is Kodak? The best example of corporate Darwinism. There is no better example than Kodak, because the 97% of the imaging industry was with Kodak. Today, where is Kodak? Because they were not able to do. Another example of inability of disruption. In front of you, in your generation, I can tell you. I hope you must know a company name called Nokia, all of you. Few years ago, when we started using mobiles, all were using a mobile called Nokia mobile. And today, where are they? It's so difficult. You know, when Android went to them, begged them, why don't you take it? They didn't take. And they are finished. And in the last press meet, the CEO of Nokia, he was crying. Virtually, he was crying. You can see that in the internet. He was telling, we don't know what we did wrong. They have not done anything wrong, I know, but they couldn't disrupt themselves when they wanted. So somebody else replaced them. So they were telling, Nokia was telling, I don't know what we did wrong, but we have been replaced. Today they are nowhere. So we can't sit complacent, very clear. Whether you are in business, whether you are a student, or whether you are an employee, I can't be complacent myself. Because if I say I don't want to grow, I don't want to disrupt, somebody else will replace me. This is very clear. So, what you have to do, this is the only mantra of success to you, what I can advise you. Bring a proportion of these three things: iteration, innovation, and disruption. But that percentage I cannot suggest you. For Japanese sushi expert, the iteration, doing things better day by day, could be 80% or 90%. But in your case, the iteration requirement could be 10%. Because we don't need to be a master in all of the things what we are doing. But you may need to innovate much more. You may need to 20% to disrupt yourself. So that balancing equation, you have to develop. You have to find out. And the moment you can develop this, I tell you, future will be with you. Nobody can replace you. You will be successful. Because the world is changing towards this 4.0 kind of changes, industry 4.0. And when the next industrial revolution comes, I cannot predict it. Because if you took the time span taken between 1 and 2 industrial revolution, that was more than 100 years. Then the second one was reduced. Then again it reduced. So this is very important. Try to change yourself as fast as possible and grapple this concept into you without worrying which field you have taken. Only thing is, put all your effort, put all your heart, and start loving your field. Future will be with you. Thank you so much.